Hanging with Higgins, where author and former prosecutor John J. Higgins interviews his intriguing guests about their lives, knowledge, experiences, and projects. Explore, learn, and be entertained. Come, join us now. Good evening, and welcome to Hanging with Higgins. I'm your host, John J. Higgins. Tonight, I have a fascinating woman. She's a television producer, talent consultant, and a mother named Marti Davis. She's recently been producing this cute comedy series on the internet called The Invaders. It can be found at theinvadersseries.com. I met Marti a few years ago when a subsidiary of NBC Universal needed to film footage for an episode of a television series program they were doing called Twist of Fate for the Weather Channel. The film crew used part of our property here that goes into the river, as they needed some additional footage of a couple of preteen girls who were part of an event where their mother's car was flooded in a river during a storm. Her daughter Leela was one of the young actresses, and I was very impressed with Leela as an actress and Marti as her manager-producer mother. At the time, Marti and Leela were also involved with a cable television show out of Princeton called Zombie Etiquette. Now I'll have an opportunity to catch up with Marti and the project she and Leela have been involved with. Thanks, Marti, for joining me.
Hi. How's it going, John? It's a pleasure to be on your show.
It's going well, and I'm glad that you could join me. Before we begin, I know you have some exciting news about this new project you are producing, The Invaders. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. The Invaders is a sci-fi live-action web series where we have a little girl who is 8 years old, portraying a 7-year-old, who is tasked with saving the world against an alien invasion. So it's really exciting. She's multiracial, and she's very adorable and spunky. And we have been working on this project for almost 2 years now. We have a number of episodes out where Angie, the girl plays Angie. It's called The Invaders, Angie's Logs. And she has discovered that aliens are coming down to Earth, and she's been tasked with superpowers and with the role of leading the resistance against these aliens. So she ends up with a babysitter who comes on board to help her and kind of, is the tag-along, drag-along. And the series itself, we have a number of episodes already released on YouTube, but we are looking and seeking for full distribution of the series. And in the meantime, we've been going out to film festivals, and we actually won 2 Telly Awards this year for the series. We won a Silver Award for the entertainment value of the production, and we won a Bronze Award for the quality of the music, which is, interestingly enough, our composer is a band member with the touring Broadway show of Wicked. Everybody loves Wicked on Broadway. So, he is, in fact, composing our music for the series in his hotel room while they're on the road on his laptop. And it sounds like Star Wars quality orchestra. In fact, YouTube, initially when we submitted our series on YouTube, they held us up from loading it because they wanted proof that the music was original music. It just sounded like Star Wars music to them. Yeah, it's a very high quality production, and we are going to be screening the production at Coney Island Sunday. For us right now, that would be this coming Sunday in September 21st, and then we're screening at the Moondance Film Festival in a few weeks, and at that screening we are finalists for Best Actress and Best Short Film, and we have been given a heads up that it's very, very likely that we'll be winning in both those categories. That's the Moondance Boulder, Colorado International Film Festival. And then we'll be at New York Comic Con in October. So I'm hoping that we'll have a really great turnout at our booth 2567, if you need the number, where to stop by and see us. So that's what's going on with The Invaders. It's been a really exciting adventure. And Leela will, in fact, be part of The Invaders. She's been shooting her episodes as the role of Red, who's a good alien, all dressed in red. So those episodes that contain her should be coming out probably before the end of the year. We're working on getting everything released, but there are a lot of special effects that are fun to watch. And as you said, people can go to our website at theinvadersseries.com and see the episodes, see the artwork. We have a lot of storyboard artwork and posters, and they can also check out the honors and awards we've been winning and also see where we're going to be next. So that's what we're doing on The Invaders. Ton of fun.
Very cool. I watched, I think there were eight episodes I saw last night. I think that number's correct. And we've released one other you might not have seen, and a trailer. We have a couple trailers up there too. Okay. So, but I was really impressed. I was really impressed with the special effects. I was quite shocked that they were as good as what they were. You know, it was kind of unexpected, you know, to me to see that on there. Yeah, and it's very well done. I mean, they're all short snippets, but they're about 3 minutes long. And, you know, they're little tales. I loved how you came up with the titles. They were pretty interesting with the subtitles of each episode. Yeah, for each episode, And we get people's attention with episode 6, Angie Gets Her Gun. Right, exactly. And people watch that one for sure. And I like Holy Ship. Right. And they're fun. They're a lot of fun. So it was a nice twist. And I know that at some point when I was looking, I don't know if I saw the trailer or I saw your director discussing the project, how he had seen the original TV series, The Invaders, and he wanted to do a comedy somewhat based along those lines. And I remember seeing The Invaders as a kid, and I was very impressed with that show because as a kid, of course, it was in the 60s when it was all the UFO stuff going around. Right. Area 51, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think the main actor was a guy called Roy Thinnis. I just thought that was a really neat TV series, one that didn't last very long, maybe a couple of seasons at best. But it's cute that the name has survived and there's a whole new take on the show. Right. So, you know, with meeting you, you know I can tell that you've been involved with this entertainment business for a fairly long period of time. And I'm always fascinated how somebody decides, you know, what they're going to do with their life. And so maybe you could tell us what it was that, you know, when you grew up or how the decision came to you that you wanted to go into the entertainment field. Well, actually, I came from the corporate business world, and I literally did not even consider the entertainment field as a field for me until my daughter Leela was discovered as an actress at the age of 7. And then as a result of taking her to set, because no child actress can be successful without a guardian or a parent who supports them in the business, who helps get them out to auditions and onto set for the actual work. As much as these kids would love to drive themselves, doesn't happen that way. So, but by virtue of being on set with her, I started to open my eyes and look around at how these productions were being run. And I said, you know, gee, this is a project. This is just like in the business world, what we consider, you know, projects that we run. Every single commercial, every TV episode, every film, it's a project. Every day of shooting is a project. I come from a very strong background in project management and worked with some of the top companies in training corporate America, actually corporate international, in project management skills. So I really saw this as an opportunity to step up as a producer and help run these types of projects. And that's kind of what I ended up doing in helping NBC locate your location to shoot on when we did Twist of Fate for the Weather Channel. That was part of, you know, looking at the project and also casting that other little girl that was in that. Casting became a big part of what I do in terms of these projects. So that's how I kind of got involved. I just got more and more involved in the project side and production, and really took a step out of corporate America to get into the entertainment business. And that's for, you know, following Leela, but then striking out on my own and working with other productions that she's not necessarily involved in. So I've worked on Amazon studio films,
feature films, TV shows, commercial work, video work, all kinds of projects with and without her. And she does her own projects in her own right. She just did the new series that Steven Soderbergh is doing, The Nick. It's a turn-of-the-century hospital story that is filmed up in Brooklyn that has come out on Cinemax. They're into their first season right now. He's already signed to do a second season. Leela is an episode too. Mr. Pair of Shoes is the subtitle of the episode. And she plays a patient for one of the lead characters, Andre Holland, who plays Dr. Edwards, stitches up Leela's arm. And Dr. Edwards happens to be African American. So the premise of this episode is the turn of the century African American doctor a surgeon working in a white hospital. So there's a lot of friction, a lot of political issues that go on in that series. And Leela had the pleasure of working with Steve and on the series. So that was exciting to be involved. Just her mother in the background, not in the episode. I stood behind, back with the crew, while they were shooting that. But so she's doing her own projects while I do mine too. So it's really fascinating. The industry is very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been watching the series, so I did see that episode. It's,
good.
Oh yeah, no, it's really a very well done period piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's in the 1880s or the early 1900s. I know they were electrifying the hospital.
Right.
So I don't know if Thomas Edison had gotten across the river into New York yet. I mean, the costuming and the sets are just
phenomenal.
Really well done. Yeah.
They had the horse and buggies in the streets. They closed off streets, took over streets of Brooklyn where people let them redo their fronts of their houses and everything to make it look like turn of the century.
Although I have to say some of the surgical scenes are a little bit tough. But
it is not for the youth to watch, that's for sure. Yeah. I think it's like rated R, Cinemax.
You do need to have a strong stomach.
Yes, exactly.
It really is. I like that kind of TV series because I get bored with, normal television because I can always predict what's going to happen in the show within the first 20 or 30 seconds.
Right.
So, something like this, it kind of unfolds in its own drama.
It's gritty, yeah.
And I'm really impressed with Leela. She did an outstanding job when he was stitching her up. The gazes she did back to the mother about having the black doctor working on her.
Right, and the pain. They didn't use, they didn't use painkiller while they were stitching up with that thick old thread, in reality back in that day. And Leela's performance, that was a 7-hour shoot of being on that table, multiple takes from every angle, to get that in the can. And at the end of the day, Steven Soderbergh, he bonused Leela. He actually upgraded her pay and bonused her for her performance because she was so consistent, which is what they need, when they're shooting those kinds of scenes. She was so consistent with emoting the pain and the discomfort of, the situation of being stitched up by him, by this doctor, and the pain of actually being stitched up. So it was done very well, and so it was a pleasure working with him. I mean, he's done Oceans 11, 12, 13, and Aaron Brockovich, one of my favorite films. So, it's really
and most people don't realize that, even what is like a 20 or 30 second or a minute long set of footage in a TV show can take 7 hours to get filmed.
Right. Yeah, I think screen time, it was only on screen for like 3 to 5 minutes of that show. Yeah. And that we shot for 7 hours to get that footage.
And all the different camera angles that they do. I mean, the actor or actress has to really be consistent doing the same performance take after take so that it becomes seamless when you put it together in the editing room.
Exactly. And the average viewer has no idea that that's what has to happen to make it the screen, those 3-5 minutes of screen time to make that story flow, that there's that many takes and that many angles required to make that happen, to make it flow naturally. Right. Yeah, it is eye-opening.
Well, and I was very impressed with you the first time I met you with that when the film crew came out. I was more concerned at the time about placing the kids in the river than I was anything else.
Right.
Because they needed a river that was a little bit on the swollen side, and we had a lot of rain that spring, I believe it was, and our river was a bit swollen. It wasn't as bad as it gets because we get flooded all the way up to here, but NBC Universal was concerned about doing some gouging out our property down at the end. I really wasn't concerned about that. I was concerned about putting the kids in the river.
Right.
That was where I wanted to be held harmless, not to
right.
not
I'm
to run
sure.
to the ground.
Yeah, yeah. Well, fortunately, they didn't have to immerse them too much, and they used. I don't know if you realized they were shooting with a GoPro camera, which was just so interesting. The DP, Josh Miller. And that was director Kim Weinstein. She's fabulous. I still stay in touch with her and Josh. They really pulled that episode together very safely with the kids. And we're able to, when you see the episode on TV, it's remarkable how scary it looks when, in fact, it's the element of that GoPro being able to be immersed in the water. And the water was only a few inches deep where they were really showing most of filming most of that footage, but it made it look murky and dark and like night, and made it really look like it was a car in the water. I mean, just by having this 4-inch, 5-inch square little camera do all the work, the heavy lifting, and the lighting was important, as I recall, because as it got darker, we did have to illuminate the shots more. But then they were out of the water. They weren't even in the water. They were sitting up on stuff that made it look like the water was behind them, as if they were sitting on the roof of a car. So mocking that up and getting those types of angles, they did a fabulous job. The final footage looks great. I've seen it a number of times. It still runs on TV. If people search for it, they'll see the episodes popping up every so often on the Weather Channel.
But no, I was really impressed with the size of that little camera because, I had done commercials in the 80s. And, some we shot on film, actually, and then others it was like the beta cams or whatever, and those were big cameras.
Right.
And when I saw them come out with that little thing that was like the size of a pack of cigarettes, I know. Like, I can't believe it's gotten to this level that they could do that.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah. I know when they first talked to me, they were asking me if they could just take a car and put it in the river. And I was like, you can't go down there and put a car in the river.
Oh my gosh, no.
You're gonna have to talk to the the DEP in the state and the EPA on the federal level.
Oh no, it wouldn't have been safe at all, even if they could have, with the waterfall and everything. No. But they really faked it. They had the lead girl that I cast, she was at Princeton. Her mom was willing to use her little Forester car. I think it was some sort of a little sort of station wagon, not station wagon, but like a Forester SUV. They used that to mock up as the real actual car, and they had it sitting in your driveway. When I pulled up, I came to set. We had a later call time. They had it sitting in your driveway in the sun, in the shade of a tree, but it was a sunny afternoon. And they had black tarps covering the sides of the vehicle, and they had your hose pouring on the front of the vehicle. And in the final footage, and they had the mom, this girl's mom, sitting at the wheel. In the final footage, it looked like she was driving through a storm. Looking through the windshield of that, it looked like a storm, and nobody would have any idea that the car was simply parked in a driveway. Talk about movie magic, very tricky. That was funny. And,
the other funny story was that I guess Kim wanted they wanted to do a phone call. I guess they did footage of the kid making because I guess the car ends up in the river. The one girl goes to get help. She makes a phone call, and then they come back with the emergency people to get the rest of the family who's stranded sitting on this car in the middle of a flooded river. At peril of being washed away themselves. So they grab the phone, and they think the phone is disconnected, and they call 911. Well, we had an emergency response to the house.
I know. I was there when they showed up. They're like, did you need, because they hung up on 911. They hung up on them, didn't say, oh, sorry, mistake. Or maybe they did say that, but 911 still came to check out, make sure it wasn't something, going on. And they did check out that we were doing things safely, which was good. They kind of
Right.
gave us a pass on, you're not drowning the kids in the river or anything like that.
Right.
But on the show itself in real life, the little girl did get across it, in the dark. I mean, she came across the field and found a house and went, and they answered the door and they let her call 911, or they called 911. And in the real life story, the phone line died right after the call was completed. So it was all twist of fate in real life that she got there in time before the line got, disconnected through the storm taking down branches. And then when the rescuers came to the house, she led them back to the river and inadvertently got disoriented as to where her vehicle was, and they discovered the second family was there were two cars in the river, in fact. And Leela, who played the little girl in the second car, that's when she gets shown in the film, in the TV show, is when the first girl finds the second car, and then they realize, oh my goodness, we've got two vehicles in this river, in this raging river, They had live footage from the raging river and saving the family the first girl was part of. So it's really remarkable. It's a really remarkable story because it did that everyone, they survived. All the members of the two families survived because that one little girl, and she was young. That little girl was like 10 years old, 10 years old. She went to the house through the storm, had to climb up the embankment, and your location had the perfect embankment. It was perfect. The embankment, getting across the field. Although, as I recall, you were driving a golf cart so we could light her way as she was running across the field, and she kept looking over her shoulder thinking we were going to run her down.
Right.
That was so funny. She was a good kid.
It's a long hike when you've got to go repeatedly up and back from the house to the river.
Right.
Here. So you kind of get worn out. I did see the episode myself, and they had the original footage, and this was fill-in footage. But, oh, my God, the original footage was really just a very frightening was going on there. Those families trapped in the cars. Yeah. And having been around flooding rivers, you really understand what the power of those things can be. So I think it was kind of a miraculous thing that, those families were saved.
That was fun to work on. I mean, it was, it all had a good outcome, positive outcome, so it was good. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing that I have been so impressed with the title Zombie Etiquette, I have to tell you. I thought that was one of the cutest and neatest things that anybody could come up with. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that all came about.
Zombie Etiquette is the brainchild of Lawrence Greenberg out of Princeton, New Jersey, originally from Princeton, and that's where I'm from as well. And Lawrence and I actually used to work together years ago in the corporate world, and he too took a path into the entertainment field and had developed this TV show called Zombie Etiquette that he came up with as a premise loosely based on like Saturday Night Live. It's a show that incorporates musical talent. Guests come on to talk about, whatever it is they're going to talk about, what they're highlighting. And usually the guests are like leading directors of films, people who are in the entertainment industry, other producers, people who have something to share, basically, authors and things like that. But it's sort of based like Saturday Night Live in the sense that they're skits or it's comedy driven. And the only difference is that it's hosted by zombies instead of humans, and they're supposed to be highly functional or high functioning zombies, not the ones that just have their arms out going, I'm going to eat your brains, They're a little more functioning, and the etiquette part is that they have etiquette, that they're not these zombies that just go about indiscriminately eating people's brains. These guys are a little more selective. So I will tell you that the guests are not guaranteed to survive their visit on the TV show that we have. In fact, I produced the show, and we have killed off a number of our guests, and then we've brought some of them back as zombies themselves on future episodes. So it's a lot of fun, and that can be seen on www.zombieetiquette.com. The episodes are out on Vimeo as well, if people search for them.
Okay.
And they are 1 hour long episode shows. They air on Princeton TV, but they also are picked up through PEG Media out to community TV stations around the country. And in fact, a feed is sent out to New Zealand as well, where there's a fan base of Zombie Etiquette fans. So Leela plays the smallest zombie named Dorothy Karen Langhorne. She's a zombie little girl. Apparently has killed a few people with her bloody trowel, like a gardening trowel. And she's a great little character on the show. So we're both involved with that production. We are working on episode 13. We have most of that episode shot out, but we have to do a couple more scenes, the skit stuff, get that in the can before we can release it. So that'll be a great episode. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she's been weaponized with a trowel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's weaponized, and she's quite a scary little child. And it's funny because we get requests for her autograph, for her photo, her signed photo, but they don't want Leela. They want Dorothy's signed photo. This has been for a few years now. We get periodically requests for, autographed headshot sort of thing, and it's always Dorothy, not Leela. So I have pulled one of the scary scenes where she's got the trowel raised and her eyes are just gleaming with, spikes in them, like she's going to really kill the person who's taking the picture.
Right.
And yeah, I invoke nightmares for the people who receive these photos, but I do get them out to them.
At some point, she may have to appear in character.
Right? Yeah, in character for an event or something. Yeah. So far, yeah, we won the Honolulu Film Festival Award for Best TV Pilot when we first started the show, but Lawrence ended up going out to Honolulu to go get it with another actress from the show. Right. We weren't available to do the flight that particular time, unfortunately. It would have been fun for Leela to show up in character for that.
Yeah.
Scare a few people.
Particularly a trip to Hawaii. That would have been a good deal.
I will tell you, we shoot most of the production in the Princeton area, either in the studio or in, locations around.
Okay.
And after shooting one time, her makeup, she has gashes on her face and blood dripping down her neck. And, she's quite gruesome looking. Her eyes she's a zombie, blacked out. Her skin's all gray and horrible.
Yeah.
After shooting one time a year ago, she told me near the end of the shoot, school tomorrow, I'm supposed to bring some book, to school for some project. I don't remember exactly what the details were. And I said, oh my goodness, we've got to go from here over to, the big bookstore, the box bookstore, like Barnes and Noble type. And so I took her, and she had gone and cleaned off her makeup, or so I thought. And I wasn't really paying too much attention. We walk in the store, and I look at her, and I realize she still has this horrible gash above her, above her eyebrow, and there's blood dripping down the side of her face, and her eyes are still looking blackened, and the lips still show a little black, makeup around the lips. So I just turned while there were other family members. What it was is there were other people as we're walking into the store, these other families with their kids, because we're approaching the kids section, are looking at her. And that's when I turned to see, why are they looking at my kids so funny? Because they're kind of moving away from her when they see her coming. I couldn't help it, John. I said, I did tell you to wear a seatbelt. And here she is with this bloody gash, and these people all did double takes. Oh my God! And I kept a straight face. She glared at me. She was not pleased, but oh my gosh, I couldn't resist. Every aisle way that we went past, new people would be coming towards us, other customers. I would do it again. I must have done it 3 times to her in this store. I told you to wear a seatbelt. These other kids were horrified. The families were like pointing, see, that's why we wear seatbelts. It was funny. I was surprised nobody told me, does your daughter need to see a doctor or go to the ER? They all kind of kept a distance, but they definitely were staring.
I don't know if you ever seen I don't know, it's some kind of gag thing. In the Facebook feed, they put them on at times, and they do like those kinds of things in public, and they're like gags.
Oh, what would you do if? Yeah, those kind of shows and gags. Yeah, where they
Actually,
see what people's reaction would be.
Leela in that kind of outfit was that there was one set of sequences where I think it was probably in Japan or some Asian country where the people are getting into the elevator and they get to a certain floor, and I guess they have like a trap door in the side.
Yeah,
and a little girl comes out like
pops out as a ghost. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a ghost with a little doll.
Yeah, it freaks the hell out of people.
Yeah.
But one person lashes out at the kid. That's what's really scary about that, doing that kind of sort of thing. Here in New Jersey, the Department of Labor would probably put their foot down because they don't want a child to be in a risky situation. You're shocking people. That was a shock value, and the poor little girl does get like smacked down by some guy who liked to protect his woman, thinking that she's a ghost. He goes after her.
I'm surprised they're not trying to help the child.
No, because she's so scary. She's so scary.
Even more reason to me, but that's another. Maybe that's why I get myself in trouble.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, it would be, if you walked in and saw her, but the fact that you're in an elevator by yourself and then you turn around and suddenly there's a ghost there, like she's so ghostly that they don't think she's a real person. It's not like she's a real little girl. They're not seeing a real little girl. They think they're seeing an aberration of a little girl. They think she's a ghost, and it freaks them out, which is totally understandable. Leela Jean, my daughter, she played a ghost in Celebrity Ghost Stories with Sugar Ray Leonard, the boxer, when he saw a ghost.
Okay.
Fortunately, in that situation, she appeared to him as a pretty little girl. She wasn't all horrific looking initially, at least. And she woke him up from a sound sleep. And at the time, his own two little boys were of around that same age. She was about 7 at the time, 7 or 8, when they shot that. And his kids were around that same age. So he woke up from a sound sleep, and he senses that someone's right next to his bed, and he's thinking it's going to be one of his kids, because that's what kids do when they wake you up in the middle of the night. Instead, he sees this pretty little white girl staying next to his bed, and he's like, not sure if he's awake or asleep. He reaches out and touches her face. And so he's not freaked out enough. He doesn't realize she's a ghost. He doesn't realize who she is. But he touches her face, at which point her face becomes burned. And I mean like graphically, globs of boiling, blistering skin as if it's burning in front of him. And that wakes him up. And then when he wakes up, that startles him out of his sleep, any sleepiness he had. And he sits right up, at which point he smells gas in the house. Strong gas smell. And he wakes his wife up and says, "Do you smell that?" Because all of a sudden he completely forgets about this girl, and he's thinking only about the smell of gas and the fact that there could be a gas leak and the house is about to explode. And his wife smells it too. And the two of them leap out of bed, run down the hall, and grab their two boys out of their beds and run out the door and drive away from the house. They evacuate, because it was so strong smelling, and they thought it was going to blow up. He calls his handyman the next day and says, Craig, you need to get out to the house because there's a gas leak. And the next morning, and Craig calls him back and says, Mr. Leonard, you don't have gas in your house. Like there's no gas feed to the house. Yeah, gives me shivers, because at that point in his life, he was forced into retirement from boxing. Sugar Ray Leonard was, Olympic level boxer, and he was completely immersed in the sport. And to be forced into retirement for the detached retina in his eyes, it threw his life into a downward spiral of drugs and drinking, and he started arguing with his wife, and his whole life was falling apart. Well, that night, while he was driving away from that house, he started seeing the light of his priorities when he thought they were going to blow up in the house. his priorities just got completely reshuffled into my family is most important, getting my life back in order is most important. And he credits it to the little ghost girl that woke him up. And when they ended up leaving that house, moving out, they found out when they were moving out that there had been a little girl years before who had died in a house fire. She was putting a kettle of water on the stove. When she turned on, they had gas at the time. When she turned on the pilot, it flash flamed and it caught her on fire and she burned in the house. And so it was as a result of her coming to him during his desperate time of need that he changed his life around. It was just, I guess, awakening for him. But the TV show, when they shot that with Leela. That was a one-day shoot, all-day shoot with the special effects makeup that took an hour and a half to put on. They shot that in the kitchen, and she had to bang on the glass because you'll see that show up. It's on the biography channel. That's under the arts and entertainment lineup. The biography Celebrity Ghost Stories. And when they show that, she's banging on the glass with the flames all around her, screaming. She's actually screaming. They had her scream, and they said, bang lightly on the glass. This is the production team making sure she didn't break the windows. But it was pretty intense to film. Wow.
Well, I'm always fascinated with those kind of stories anyway. It's
ghost stories,
or divine intervention in certain times and places that, so alter, someone's life that it doesn't make logical sense for what we know day-to-day living. But those things can have such a tremendous effect. And like you said, it all of a sudden changed his life all around, saved their lives probably in some way.
Yeah. He was willing to come out and be on our zombie etiquette show if we'd had the funds to fly him out from California. And then he would have met Leela in person as a zombie instead of a ghost. That was going to be kind of neat. I talked with his agent about it, and it just was zombie etiquette operates on a low budget, so we just didn't have the funds to bring him out. But we would still welcome him on the show if he's listening to your radio show right now and he wants to come out, or if he's in the New York area and wants to come down, we can certainly comp him his travel from the city down to Princeton.
Right.
Yeah, sure. That would be fun.
I remember around that time you were talking about Doritos commercials too.
Yes,
right?
That's how we originally got involved with Mark Cabroy, who's the creator and director of the Invaders series. You see, John, how networked our industry is.
All the time.
Yeah, the Zombie Etiquette show, Lawrence Greenberg had lined up Mark Cabroy, who was one of the top 10 short film directors in New York City back in 2010. And we brought him on the show, just a few years ago now, but he came on and he met Leela, who was in her zombie role. So he sees this little girl as a zombie, and she said to him after his interview on our show, she said, Mr. Cabroy, if you ever need a little girl as a human on one of your projects, please let me know. Here's this 8-year-old girl asking this guy, can this director, can you include me in something as a human? And he's looking down at this little zombie going, wow, isn't that cute, Well, 3 weeks later, he contacted Lawrence and I and said that she basically put the seed in his mind, and he came up with a storyline for her to be a human in the Doritos spec commercial for the Crash the Super Bowl contest, the commercial contest that they have for Doritos every year. And he had sworn he wasn't going to do one of these, but he came up with this whole script around Leela having said that. So she plays a human survivor of a zombie apocalypse. And we used our zombies from Zombie Etiquette as well as a number of other people I cast, because I do a lot of casting as a producer. Casting is one of the areas that I do focus on for my projects and projects I'm brought in on. So we shot it down here in New Jersey, and he brought a couple people out of New York with him. We got our special effects makeup artists on set. We had 5 hours, and we shot a whole 30-second commercial that was so funny with the zombie apocalypse and her. She's the peacemaker with the bag of Doritos. The zombies are about to eat the humans, but she offers them the Doritos instead. And at the end, everyone's having merrymaking with Doritos. It's very witty.
Good to know.
Very,
in case I have
cute.
a zombie outside, I better make sure I have a bag of Doritos handy.
Yes. If you're fearful of zombies, break out the Doritos. Yeah.
I think The Walking Dead should get advised of this.
Yes, exactly. So that's how we got involved with Mark. And after he worked with her on that, he was just like, we need to work together on more projects. He's had her in on a couple projects in the city as a result of that.
Well, like I say, and what I was so impressed with was not only her, professionalism when she was doing the performance. She was just genuinely a nice, bright, little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's got a lot of charisma.
She does.
She really does. I mean, and I don't say that about a lot of people,
I'm saying that as a producer myself. And in fact, NBC, different unit of NBC, shot a commercial back when Leela was 8 years old. She had just turned 8, I believe. They ended up bumping her up to the lead in this commercial because we got there early. Take note, any actors who are listening to this program tonight, be on set early. You never know what will happen. And they put Leela in the place of the girl who was supposed to play the lead because she hadn't arrived yet, and they had already set the stage for the scene, so they wanted to run some rehearsals for the woman who was playing the mom of the little girl in this grocery store commercial. It was a national commercial spot. Leela remembered the lines from the audition. She had auditioned for lead but hadn't gotten the role, but we had agreed to do background. So they put her in, and the client loved how she looked and worked the whole scene, that when the lead showed up, they pretty much turned her around, paid her for the day, and sent her home, which isn't always ideal. But then the producer said to us by the end of the day, shooting that whole shoot in the grocery store as the lead, at the end of the day, the producer who had been running the show in a live grocery store, it was open. They didn't shut the store, and they were shooting, with the public and everything, having to close off aisles. And we had a full team on this production with cameras and monitors and grip equipment everywhere. It was quite the event. At the end of the day, she took me aside and said, I need to talk to you about your daughter. And I was like, what did she do? And she said, your daughter is, how old is she? And I said, she's 8 years old. And she said, I have not worked with even kids years older than her that are like her, so engaged in the process of making this commercial, of shooting. She's engaged. She didn't go run back to me between sets. She stayed on set working with the team to reset the stock on the shelves. She had to pull products off the shelves, and she's helping them reset the product. She's helping them with audio checks and audio this and that, and working with the director on, positioning and all the aspects that go into making a commercial really work, how she's pulling these items off the shelf, how she's reaching up. She's working with them and just being involved. And this producer was just astounded with her level of just involvement and professionalism, basically. And she said to me, your daughter, obviously she can act, but she said she could have any job she wants in this industry, including mine, is what she said. I'm so impressed with her. And that just knocked my socks off to get that kind of feedback from, this big producer at NBC. Yeah. And that is usually the accolade that I always look to hear from every project she's on, that they come away and they tell us how professional she is, because she really is that way on set.
She is.
She's really fun to be with, but, the moment the cameras are set, she is on her mark. She knows exactly what she needs to do, and she's immersed in the process.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
And like I say, that's very impressive. So do you have, one of the things that I think is interesting, maybe using that as a segue is having a child that wants to do these kinds of things. Do you have any advice for anyone who has a child similar to Leela, or they're thinking
Mhm.
about having their child enter the entertainment business?
Yeah, I would say think long and hard about it. First
Uh-huh.
off, I do talent consulting. I work with clients. I got into talent consulting as a result of other parents being on set with their kids and seeing Leela in action and seeing her resume and being like, how can we get our kids to, grow their resumes and get more involved the way she is? And I've supported helping them with that. I have a degree in marketing from Bentley University and business administration degree as well. So I sort of applied those skill sets to helping these folks putting together a program that I run and work with them. And one of the first things I do is I have my clients, when they have kids, I have a questionnaire that I have them answer. And just a couple of weeks ago, one of the moms, oh, my daughter loves to act. She loves watching TV. She loves, seeing these programs and wants to get into it. We want to meet with you and so on and so forth. Well, I send that questionnaire over first, and I always say the child needs to fill it out. I'm not checking spelling here. I want to see what they want out of themselves for this business. Well, this little girl, when it came down to sitting down and filling it out, she determined she actually didn't want to go into acting. She liked her dance classes and the other things she was doing. And her mom was sort of, I won't say pushing, but was encouraging her to go the path of acting. And the little girl said maybe someday when she's older, she might consider it, but she basically didn't want to do it. And that's the first thing we want to uncover. And any talent agent, any talent manager is going to want to uncover the same thing. How strong is the desire of the child to really be in the business? Because otherwise, the parents are committing time and money and effort into this process, and it's not worth it if they're not going to be the one, if the child isn't going to want to be in front of the camera. You don't want to put all that time and effort and take it away from other family activities, because it really is involved. And I think a lot of people think that they just get a few pictures taken and get them out to the right agents and so forth, and all of a sudden they'll be superstars. It actually doesn't work that way in real life. It is a pretty intensive process, but on the other hand, it's very doable. For kids that really do want to be actors, working actors, as I call it, sort of a reality check. It's, you're working, and there are going to be projects where you're only making $100 for the project, and other projects that you're going to make thousands of dollars. As non-union actors, you're usually looking at the hundreds, not thousands, for the projects. And sometimes you're doing things just for a copy of the material, the footage that you can build a reel from. So you're really working on sort of spec, or you're working on just exchange, barter, basically. So it really just depends. But people who go into this thinking you're going to land a McDonald's commercial and make, thousands and thousands of dollars are pretty much misled. Those people. It's really a big industry, but yeah. So I'm sorry.
Like for a child too. For a child too. I mean, like your experience with that TV show, The Nick, that it takes 7 hours to get 4 or 5 minute, sequence down. Right. I mean,
and a lot of kids won't put up with that tedious, take after take process. They don't understand that that's the process involved to shoot stuff. And when they get involved in that process, Leela did a commercial that she was lead in this past spring up in New York City, and involved doing a library scene where she and the librarian, it's the interaction between the two of them, but they had like 10 other children for the scene around Leela. The librarian's reading a story to them, and they're filming the reaction. A couple of the kids actually are sitting on the little stools, around the librarian, and these are kids who were 9, 10, 11 years old. They're like leaning back in their chairs and staring at the ceiling and doing all kinds of weird things while the shooting is going on. And
Right.
this is something like you would never see Leela do, you know. She's intent
Right.
on being the character that she's playing, a little girl who's listening to a librarian read a story and being engaged and listening to that story, even though the librarian has just said the same sentence 20 times for each take. Leela acts as though it's the first time she's hearing it, and she's completely focused, and it so shows when you have these other kids who don't understand that that's the acting that they're supposed to be doing, not doing gymnastics on these chairs or these stools that they're sitting on. They're leaning back, they're twiddling their thumbs, thumping their feet. I mean, they're just, you know, they're not engaged. And that's the challenge that comes with kids who get into this without understanding what it is they're actually getting into, what the work involves. Going in and auditioning is quick and usually fairly fun or exciting. You know, you go in, you meet the casting director, the producer, the director, you know, you go through that process, and, you know, you're meeting and greeting and doing a little skit or a little scene or a monologue or whatever. That's the easy part. Going in and actually working, you have to perform. And it means that when the camera's rolling, you've got to be on the entire time, whether the camera's pointing directly at you or not. And that's tough for kids to understand that. Even some of my adult actors, because I do now work talent consulting with adults as well, and it's the same thing, helping them market themselves, helping them understand what they need to do right on auditions and what they need to do right on set that will make them be asked back. And example, recently, one of the actors, one of my clients, he told me he was on set. I can't tell you the name of the company. It's a big consumer products company, and they were doing the scene where they have to look at a TV set. There's a group of, it's like a family. They're watching TV, and they're excited about a game, football game type of thing on the screen, and they're supposed to be cheering for their team. I don't know if it's football, baseball, whatever, but they're cheering for their team, and they have to do multiple takes. There were two young kids, Leela's age, a little girl Leela's age, like 12, and a younger boy, her brother, and they're supposed to be cheering for, you know, their team, scoring whatever kind of goal. And each take, they did like the first 3-4 takes, and then they got bored, and they told the director that they didn't want to do it anymore. And they're like, can you imagine? And so this actor, who's, you know, one of my actors, he said to me, can you give me Leela's stuff? Because I know he's worked with Leela before. He's like, oh my God, this production team didn't know what to do. The girl walked off set. Off set. I'm like, that is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. On a national consumer brand commercial. I'm like, oh my goodness, that would never happen.
Well, and like I had this discussion with somebody else I've interviewed. I mean, I don't think the general public understands the expense of what it takes to put that set together.
Right.
And, you know, every minute is extremely costly, and the bigger the production, the more money it costs, and time is really money in all of that. And I don't know what you would do if the actor, even a background actor walked off and you couldn't film them again. Now you've really got to adjust everything you're doing, to try to make up for that mistake.
Exactly. Or if they're doing the wrong thing, they're looking at the camera lens when they shouldn't be, or they're staring at the lead actors intently, and, they're not supposed to do that. They have to be natural. It's interesting because Leela also had an incident. She filmed last year up in Albany, New York, for a regional commercial for MVP Healthcare. And she was the lead. She worked with Pete Posteleone, who played her dad. He's one of the big Philadelphia area actors. He was in Silver Linings. I don't know if you saw Silver Lining Playbook.
Okay.
Did you see that with Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence?
I think I've seen pieces of it. I haven't seen the whole movie yet.
Oh, that's worth seeing. That won the Oscars, you know. So, and with all our local talent, Pete played the attorney. Spoiler alert here. He played the attorney that Jennifer Lawrence meets at the bar and distracts her and so on and so forth. And I thought Bradley Cooper was going to beat him up, but I won't tell you where that goes. But anyway, so Pete plays Leela's father. in this commercial up in Albany. It was a 2-day shoot, and they had cast us out of the New York, casting company, but they ended up bringing 2 smaller children, a brother and a sister, who were like 7 and 5 years old, through a local talent agent, and bringing these kids in to be part of this commercial. And like you said, time is money. The scenes were set and blocked out with, so much time to shoot each scene to make up this, 1-minute commercial. And the scene called for a family gathering, friends and family coming to the house, and they're highlighting healthy eating. They're making all this really wonderful food from fresh produce and stuff, and they're setting the table, and the friends and family are pouring in the door, and everybody's talking and happy, and they're going to have an outdoor, on the back deck party, and, it's just happy, healthy living. And Leela's playing the homeowner's daughter and inviting the friends and relatives in. Well, these 2 little children come in, and they sit at the island in the kitchen. They had the kitchen, big island, beautiful big kitchen, country kitchen. People are pouring in. Well, these 2 children, apparently the talent agent had misled the production team in saying that they had experience. And it turned out this was their first time on set. And this was a well-paid project, by the way. And he just wanted to get them on set, and he basically lied. And these 2 kids, never having been on set before, never having worked before, this was their first time. They just couldn't cope with all these strangers coming in the room all joyous and, joyfully greeting each other, and all the noise and commotion while the cameras are rolling. And the little girl had a meltdown and started crying. And the little boy, seeing his sister have a meltdown, he starts crying. Poor Leela, she's very nurturing. She's trying to distract them and comfort them and try to keep them from melting down, because she sees it happening, and the director of photography is filming and recognizing what she's going through. And he's having to take the shots now and move towards other people. They weren't running sound. Fortunately, they were not running sound to pick up these kids crying. But he had to film the other actors, which, of course, takes away from that shot being something that Leela and the actors at her side of the table with, the island there, would be in, as a result. But Leela was so sad for these kids, and she's trying to comfort them. Meanwhile, the producer is completely pissed off, and she ends up having to call. We always have a backup plan. She calls her own husband and has her own son, who's not an actor but has been dragged into productions because his mom works in productions. He gets pulled from going to the carnival that night and comes out to set, has to drive 40 minutes to get there, and basically as a backup to if they were going to kick those 2 kids off set, which almost really did happen. They almost sent them home. Instead, Leela took them out in the playground. The backyard had a play set. She played with them. She calmed them down. The director of photography went out and shot them, just the 3 of them playing, so that they saw that it's nothing to be scared of. And they did keep the kids in, but they kept them really off the edge of the camera, like on the edge of the table scene, But these are the challenges. People don't recognize when they're getting their kids into this. They can really get themselves blacklisted. Like, those kids will never get called by that same production team from Albany. They just burn their chances in the Albany market of ever working with that team again, because they almost blew the commercial, as far as having that scene complete with the other kids in it. The commercial, good note, on a bright side, it won an Addy Award, which is really high accolades. So Leela has an Addy Award for that commercial spot. It was wonderfully done, beautiful music, and just really portrays healthy living.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Marti, we are out of time, actually.
Okay.
So,
sorry to go on there.
That's okay.
It's been a pleasure.
No. Yep, it's really been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work and Leela's work, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. And if you just hold on for a second, then I'll be back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. For those listening, I want to thank I want to say thanks to OurTruth.com for making this broadcast possible. And you can find more information about me and my book series, The Archangel Jeremiel and the War to Conquer Heaven, at www.john-j-higgins.com. And the website for this radio show is www.hangingwithhiggins.com. I want to thank you for listening, and have a good night.